All right, so we're all about getting smarter here on the deep dive.
Absolutely.
And I think we all know that feeling when you're like, okay, I got to get through this online course or this lecture or whatever.
Yes, definitely.
But you're also thinking like, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever.
Yeah.
I know I do it all the time, just hitting that speed up button.
Oh, for sure, me too.
It just feels like the obvious thing to do, right? Like I can save so much time.
Exactly. It's so tempting.
But
Yeah.
is it actually a good idea?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Are we really learning less when we do that?
Right. Like, are we just tricking ourselves into thinking we're being efficient?
Potentially.
And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today.
Yeah, we found this study that really gets into the nitty-gritty of speeding up video lectures.
It's a meta-analysis, actually, and it was published just the other day on April 8th in the Educational Psychology Review.
Fresh off the press.
And the title is pretty blunt. Increasing video lecture playback speed can impair test performance, a meta-analysis.
So no beating around the bush there.
Nope. Straight to the point.
Now, a quick explanation for anyone who's not familiar with meta-analyses.
Yeah. What are those all about?
Well, basically, it's like a super study where researchers gather a bunch of existing studies that all looked at the same question.
Okay, so they're not actually doing new experiments themselves. They're just like compiling.
Exactly. They're combining all that data to get a much more reliable answer than any one study could provide on its own.
Makes sense because you're kind of getting the bigger picture, right?
Exactly. It's all about the big picture.
And in this case, they looked at 24 different studies,
Wow, that's a lot.
which gave them a whopping 110 different results.
That's huge.
All about how tweaking the playback speed of video lectures affects how well people perform on tests about what they learned.
So that's our mission today, to break down what all that data tells us.
Is speeding up actually a smart move, or could it be like secretly sabotaging our learning?
Right. Because we're all about learning here, but we're also busy people.
Yeah, for sure. So we want to make sure we're using our time wisely.
Absolutely. So let's talk about why we even speed up videos in the first place.
Okay, so I know I've definitely been guilty of this. Like, I'm trying to get through a course and I'm thinking like, okay, 1.25x, let's go.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I've been there.
Or even 1.5x sometimes if I'm feeling bold.
Yeah. Why do we do that?
I think it's just that desire to be efficient, right? Like we live in this fast-paced world and there's always so much to learn.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. It's like this constant need to consume information faster and faster.
And with video lectures specifically, if you have an hour-long lecture and you watch it at 2x speed, you've suddenly cut that time in half.
That's a big chunk of time.
Right, especially if you're juggling like a million different things.
Absolutely. It's like a time-saving superpower.
But okay, here's the crucial question. Does hitting that speed up button actually hurt our ability to understand what's being taught?
Right. That's what we really want to know, and that's where this meta-analysis comes in.
So what was the big takeaway?
Well, the main finding, and this is important for everyone to hear, is that increasing the playback speed can actually have a negative effect on how well you do on tests about that material.
Okay, so that feeling that we sometimes get when we're speeding things up, like, wait, am I actually missing something?
Yeah,
That's a valid concern.
it is. This research seems to back that up.
So what about those like smaller speed increases? Like when I just bump it up a little to like 1.25 or 1.5?
Well, that's where things get a little more interesting.
Okay, tell me more.
So the meta-analysis found that while there's still a chance of a negative impact at those slower speeds, it's usually pretty small. And a lot of times it's not even statistically significant for speeds of 1.5x and slower.
Interesting. So it's like you can maybe gain a little bit of time without totally sacrificing your understanding.
Potentially. At least that's what this research suggests.
So maybe sticking to that 1.5x mark or below is a good rule of thumb.
It might be a good starting point, but of course everyone's different.
Right. It's not one size fits all.
Exactly.
Mhm.
But what's clear is that there does seem to be a point where you cross a line and the negative effects really kick in.
Okay, so where's that line? What happens when we go faster than 1.5x?
Well, the meta-analysis shows that the negative impact on test performance becomes much more noticeable once you go beyond 1.5x.
Like if you're watching at 1.75 or 2x.
Yeah, or even faster, the chances of your understanding taking a hit go way up.
It makes sense though, right? Like it's like trying to have a conversation with someone who's speaking super fast.
Exactly. Eventually, you just can't keep up.
And you start missing things.
You miss those crucial details.
Now, one thing that really stood out to me in the paper was this phrase, no evidence of moderation, by several theoretically important variables.
Ah, yes. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it?
It is. Can you break that down for us normal folks?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So basically what they're saying is that they thought certain things might influence how playback speed affects learning, but they didn't find strong evidence for that.
Okay, so for example,
Well, you might think that the type of test you're taking would make a difference.
right? Like multiple choice versus essay.
Exactly. You might assume that speeding up wouldn't be as bad for a multiple choice test where you just have to recognize the answer.
Versus an essay where you have to remember and write down a ton of information.
Yeah, that's a logical assumption.
Or maybe even the length of the video itself. Like a
Okay.
shorter, more focused video might be easier to follow at a faster speed than a super long and complicated lecture.
Right, those are all great points, and those are the kinds of things they were looking at. But surprisingly, they didn't find a strong link there.
Really? So it didn't really matter what kind of test it was or how long the video was?
That's what they found.
Yeah.
Yeah, the overall pattern was pretty consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Faster speeds generally led to lower test scores.
Wow. So even though it feels like those things would matter, they didn't really.
That's what this research suggests.
That's pretty mind-blowing to
It
me.
is interesting, isn't it?
It really is. So it seems like the potential downside of speeding up is pretty much the same across the board.
Based on this research. Yeah, it seems that way.
Huh. So fascinating. So it's like maybe there's something about how our brains actually process information from videos that gets messed up when we speed things up.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about those fundamental limits of how our brains work.
Right. Like how much can we actually take in at once?
Exactly. And that's something to think about, especially in our world of constant information overload.
Now, I did notice that this study mentioned a possible exception for math.
Oh, yes, that's an interesting tidbit.
Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So basically, they did this extra analysis, and it hinted that math might be a little less affected by faster playback speeds.
Oh, that's so interesting. Why would that be?
Well, we can only speculate, but it could be something about the way math concepts are presented or the way our brains process that kind of information.
Like maybe it's more logical and step by step, so it's easier to follow even at a faster pace.
That's one possibility.
But I do remember reading that they were cautious about that finding.
Yes, and rightly so, because it was based on very limited data.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, only 4 data points and all at 1.5x speed.
Ah, okay, so not a ton to go on.
Not really.
Yeah.
So it's possible that the apparent advantage for math is actually just a reflection of that general finding we talked about.
That the negative effects are less pronounced at 1.5x.
Exactly.
So it's not necessarily that math is special, it's just that 1.5x might be that sweet spot where the impact is minimal anyway.
Precisely.
So the bottom line is we can't really say for sure that math is immune to the downsides of speeding up.
Nope. We need more research on that specifically.
And across a wider range of speeds.
Absolutely.
This is so interesting. It really makes you think about how we approach learning.
Definitely.
Now, we've talked a lot about test performance, but what about those times when you're not studying for a test?
Good point. Sometimes it's more about just getting a general overview of a topic.
Right, like maybe I just want to get the gist of something new or figure out if it's even something I want to learn more about.
That's a common scenario.
So does playback speed matter as much in those cases?
Well, it's a great question, and it's worth considering that the meta-analysis mostly focused on those content tests.
Right, where you have to remember specific details.
Exactly. But if your goal is just to get familiar with a topic or grasp the main ideas, then it's possible that slightly faster speeds might be okay.
Yeah, like if I'm not going to be quizzed on it, maybe I can afford to miss a few things.
Right, you might be prioritizing a broader understanding over those tiny details.
But if I know I'm going to need to remember specific things or actually apply the knowledge later, then sticking to a normal speed or just a small increase is probably smarter.
I think that's a good strategy to keep in mind.
It all comes down to your learning goals.
Yeah, exactly. What are you hoping to get out of this video?
And how deeply do you need to understand the material?
If you really need to absorb it and remember it for the long haul, then even slowing the video down at times might be helpful.
Yeah, like for those really complex parts.
Precisely.
But if it's more about just getting a general idea, then a moderate speed increase might be all right.
As long as you keep that 1.5x threshold in mind.
It's all about finding that balance, right?
Finding that sweet spot between efficiency and effectiveness.
Now, this meta-analysis seems like it really dug deep into the research on this.
It did. They looked at a lot of studies.
Does this connect to what we know about how we learn in other ways? Like, have there been other studies on how our brains handle information that's sped up?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of research in related fields.
Like what?
Well, there's been a lot of work on how we process time-compressed speech.
Oh, like those sped up audiobooks.
Exactly. They've looked at how those faster presentation rates affect our ability to understand and remember what we hear.
That makes sense, and I guess that's kind of similar to what we're talking about with video lectures.
It is. And there's also a whole field of research on multimedia learning.
What's that?
It's basically about how we learn from videos and other combinations of visuals and audio, and how things like the pace of information can affect how much effort it takes to learn and how much we actually retain.
That's super relevant to this discussion.
It is. And the researchers behind this meta-analysis actually cited a lot of those related studies.
So their findings fit in with that bigger picture of how we learn.
That's right.
Okay, so let's wrap things up for our listeners who are probably thinking like, wow, this is a lot to process.
Haha. Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
So what are the key takeaways from all of this?
The main message is be careful when you're tempted to crank up the speed on those video lectures, especially if you really want to learn the material.
Yeah, because it might feel like you're saving time.
But you might actually be hurting your understanding in the long run.
Especially if you go faster than 1.5x.
That seems to be the magic number.
Right, but for those smaller speed bumps, like to 1.25 or 1.5, the impact is probably pretty small.
And sometimes not even statistically significant,
So maybe there's a little wiggle room there.
potentially.
But what about that surprising finding that it didn't really matter what kind of test it was or how long the video was?
Yeah, that was unexpected.
It makes you wonder if there's something about our brains that just can't handle information beyond a certain speed.
Exactly. Like there's a limit to how fast we can actually process and learn.
And once we hit that limit, our understanding just can't keep up.
It's a fascinating idea, isn't it?
It really is. So basically, this whole thing has really made me rethink how I approach learning from videos.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's easy to just default to that speed up button.
But maybe we should be more mindful about it,
Absolutely. Because just because we can speed things up doesn't mean we should.
especially if we're really trying to learn and understand something new.
Exactly. So I think the big question for all of us is how can we find that balance between learning quickly and learning effectively?
Right. Because it's not just about speed, it's about actually getting something out of it.
And I think that's something to think about as you're watching those videos.
Should you be adjusting your speed based on the subject you're learning?
Even though the research didn't find strong evidence for that, it's still a good question to ask yourself.
Right. And how does your level of understanding play into it?
If you need to really know the material, should you slow things down?
So many things to consider.
It really makes you think about your own learning habits, doesn't it?
It really does. So maybe this deep dive has given all of us a little something to chew on.
I hope so.
Thanks for joining us today.
It was a pleasure.